Hi, I'm the Craft Maiden, and in this video I'll show you how to make a Hogwarts silhouette lamp. This leftover Masonite from a cabinet no longer in use will act as a base for my lamp. I have traced out Hogwarts silhouette onto a piece of paper and are going to transfer it onto the board. And to do that you could use a graphite paper or, like in my case, a paper you scribbled on using a pencil. Then by placing the scribbled part face down in between, I'm using the pencil to follow the lines to transfer the pattern. And as always, if you want to make one yourself, please check the description box down below. I will list all the materials and tools over there. Because I want to see where to cut this piece, I go over with a marker so the lines won't be so faded. Then I just marked out where to cut the excess off. You don't need to do this, but at least cut as near the pattern as possible. And for this I'm using a regular handsaw. And now for the fun part, and that is to cut out Hogwarts with a fret saw or coping saw, whichever you got at hand. I like to use a fret saw as it reaches further, but because its blade is stuck in one position and doesn't work as a coping saw, which you can bend to the curves, I just have to cut from more than one side to get into all the details. And for this part I just drilled a hole and placed the blade inside and cut it out. As the sawing might leave rough edges, I just smooth them out with a regular sized file and a pack of needle files. Because I want Hogwarts to hang a bit from the wall to give room for lights, I'm using a piece of wood that I need to cut into right size. And once again I'm using an ordinary handsaw. Because I didn't want the light to get too close to the edge, I just cut off the corners. And by using the first corner as a guide to the other side, I could get the same angle on both of them. I'm using RGB lights for this lamp, and to hide the box so it won't create any shadows, I'm just going to place it inside of this wood piece. So I'm marking out where it should be, and then I'm going to cut it out. First I just cut the vertical lines, but to cut the wood horizontally I just drilled a bunch of holes so that excess piece just broke off. Then I just smoothed the surface with a knife and filed the whole piece. To hang everything on the wall I wanted yet again something that wouldn't give any shadows. So therefore I'm using a pair of old brackets, or rather in fact these Keyhole hangers. But to fit in the screws I needed to cut some holes. And I tested a few ways to do that, and the first attempt was that by drilling a few holes and carve out the hole with a knife. I didn't like that way, so instead I used my Dremel with a multipurpose tool attached to it, and after a few tries I was satisfied with the result and went with that. Here I'm measuring out where to place the holders, and there is no need to be precise, just as long as both holders are placed at the same height and not too close to the edge of the wood. This is because the wood might crack, and it would be easier if they are at the same height when you are hanging it up on the wall. So here I'm attaching the multipurpose tool and its cutting guide. And by using the old bracket as a guide, I could easily get the right depth of the cut, but it worked just fine using a caliper to measure as well. And of course, when working with power tools like this, please use safety glasses and ear protection. Then by starting the cut in a 45-degree angle, it's easier to get into the wood. Then it's just working against the rotation of the tool and letting it do its work on its own. If you are forcing it, it might give you a really ugly cut or even break. And to smooth out any uneven edges, I just attaching a sanding drum tool with a fine sanding band on it. And then for the final hole I'm measuring with the holders where the hole should be, and then cut it out again with a multi-purpose tool. And to attach the keyhole hangers I used 4 short screws that wouldn't go through the wood. To attach the wood piece to Hogwarts, I made sure it were placed in the middle and as straight as I would want it to hang on the wall. And by tracing the outlines, I could mark where the screws would be placed. With a pricker, I transferred those marks into the front, so I would know where to countersink for the screw heads. I don't have a countersink, so I used a drill bit that has the same angle as the head of the screws. I did this part because I want the front to be as flush as possible. Then I just glued the wood piece to the backside and used some screws to hold it into place. When all the screws were into place, the only thing I needed to do were to fill in the holes with some wall fillers and leave it to dry. In the meantime, I painted the edge of the wood piece white. I would have painted the whole backside if it weren't already white. And you want it white because it reflects the light the best. But there is no need to paint the backside of the wood piece as it's going to face the wall. When the wall filler had dried, I sanded it all down with some sanding paper and wiped off any dust, before spraying it with black acrylic as a base coat. And don't forget the edges with some additional black acrylic. To add a bit more magic to this piece, I'm going to spray the whole thing with spray adhesive and cover Hogwarts in glitter. You can of course use lacquer or something like Mod Podge to stick the glitter to the lamp, but make sure to cover it in an even coat as it otherwise will show brush strokes through the glitter. By pressing the glitter into the adhesive, it should stick even better, then shake off the excess and seal it off with a glossy varnish. Here I'm checking where to place the IR controller so that it still will be possible to connect and disconnect the cord. And I'm just sticking it on by using a strong double-sided tape. To light this lamp up, I'm using an RGB-light strip that I'm wrapping around the wood piece to check how much I need. Because the strip is only to be cut at certain marked places, I decided to overlap the strip to avoid any dark shadows. To be able to use the strip, I had to solder on a female connector. So first I just cut off a bit of the plastic covering the copper connection, peeled it off and started soldering the piece on. Don't forget to check so the letters are lined up in the right order on the IR controller and the strip, as it will otherwise light up but in the wrong color. Unfortunately, I had to change mine as I used an old one lying at home that was in the wrong order. To cover the soldered part, I used a bit of heat shrink tubing and a heat gun. Then it's time for assembling. I'm sticking the IR receiver onto the lamp with the double-sided tape, but you can of course use hot glue if you want to. As the strip is already covered in a tape on the backside, it's easy to apply. But if yours doesn't have one, you can of course use hot glue instead. When everything is in place, check to see that everything is working and you are good to go and hang it on the wall. And to quote a very wise man, happiness can be found even in darkest of times, if one will only remember to turn on the light. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions about future ones, please comment down below and I might give it a go. So thank you so much for watching, I hope to see you next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome stuff. Bye!